welcome back. Dr. Tunde Olusule joins us next, a former presidential advisor, also a media practitioner. Good morning and thank you for coming.
Good morning.
Today.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
But just before we delve into this, Labour had said they were going to down tools and begin the strike today, but our team are out. They've gone to the airport in Lagos and they found that passengers are picking up their boarding passes, their tickets without any hitch. It did appear as though things are going on as normal, even though they put every one of those aviation officials on alert, just in case any group or otherwise might want to come in and cause all of this forced to strike as it were. But we're keeping tabs. So those are images that came through from the Murtala Mohammed airport in Lagos, and so the team are all over town also checking to find out if Labour has started, what becomes of it. But before then, don't forget, government has also told them to obey the court order, and it will be contrary to that order if they embark on strike. So we'll be out there to see what happens. But at the moment, that appears to be the situation right now. So let's get back to this here in the studio. The elections, well, yes, it's been called, notwithstanding the hitches and the process, questions about the process. We did look at it briefly just before now. So what happened? From your perspective, were your fears confirmed or what?
Yes, let me begin from the area of security arrangements for the election, because I went out there to vote in my community. I drove from Abuja here to my part of Kogi State. And I was impressed about the security detailing, on the way. Once you cross Abaji into Chikara, you're in Kogi State. And, for once in a very long time, I saw that people could actually feel safe. I knew it was bad business for marauders and hoodlums, who threatened the peace in any way. And, this was all the way. There were barricades. The security guy spoke to you politely, and you went your way. So, that was impressive.
So you didn't feel that it was over-policed as a result of them being deployed along the road?
In fact, a few people in my community were saying they wish there were elections every weekend if this kind of manning, was going to be. Some of us who have, country homes have not been home in a while. I've not been home since, we buried my father 5 years ago. So my first business at home was to begin a very, very massive cleanup, But my people also joked, if we're going to have, the police, the army, all the way. I interviewed some of the military guys. People were brought in from Niger State, from Edo State, to beef up local security. So I was happy about that. The police was there in the polling units and uniformed personnel elsewhere, from what I could glimpse. Where I voted, a deputy commissioner of police was in charge of the local government, and he came around, he spoke to voters, and it looked at that level fine.
But eventually, can you say the same thing for the overall picture? Not
at all, because it looks like our people in Kogi State have just signed up for, a perpetuation of, the very things they've been complaining about in the last 8 years. You would have thought, that people who feel genuinely pinched, by, unpaid salaries, unpaid leave bonuses, stagnated promotions, visible hunger on the streets, you'll have thought, they had a chance, to do something differently. Incumbents in places have been torpedoed. We recall, of course, that in Benue State, the immediate past governor, a very good friend, couldn't get himself into the Senate, and he couldn't produce a successor. The same thing happened in Abia. So, it is not always a given that the outgoing is able to privilege himself with a second term. But like I said, there's been a lot of blame game. I come from Kogi West. you know, and you know, the people there were saying, oh, you know, in Kogi East, they voted their person. In Kogi Central, they voted their person. But, you know, people decided to go different ways, you know, when it came to our own case. Of course, there were also, you know, problems of overvoting, problems of, you know, pre-entered forms, you know, like in Kogi Central, for instance, where the results of one local government area swallowed the results from 3 or 4 elsewhere. You know, so there's still a lot of rejigging we have to do about the electoral system. When it came in 2007, the late President Yar'Adua admitted to Nigerians that the election that brought him in was flawed and that he was going to commit, you know, to a review. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to pull that through. Jonathan came in, he set up the National Conference in 2014, and up till date, no government has gone back to that. It's probably gathering dust on some bookshelves. I'm saying here, therefore, that we still have a lot to do if we really want to stick with democracy as our model.
Do you agree with some people who believe that, look, if we really want to have at least fair or transparent elections, we have to do something about political reforms, and in this case, specifically reducing the perks of office, because the perks of office is humongous. They would do any and everything to get in.
Politics in the absence of every other thing, or let me say because of the failure of many sectors, has become an industry in itself. When you go home now and you speak to youngsters, what are you doing right now? I'm into politics. And you know, what is his own interpretation of being into politics? He's probably going around, you know, as a lackey of, you know, some political local lord, you know, and you know, he carries his bag while the other man is posturing as a potential, you know, big man. And a lot of our youth, they waste their time that way. But of course, we cannot blame them. You just made the point about how attractive public office is, you know, in Nigeria. You're in the National Assembly, you are sure of an SUV of 160 million naira. You are out in 4 years. If you are reinvented after 4 years, the cycle continues. You get additional cars and so on and so forth. We cannot continue like this.
And they can't make that in public sector.
Absolutely.
They can't work like that and make free money.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, we're not going to grow as a nation like that. I'm also worried about the ballooning of, you know, political appointees. I work for Obasanjo, and he kept it very tight. I'm not sure in my time, or in his time, let me say, I'm not sure, you know, between advisors and assistants and personal assistants globally, that, you know, deck, I'm not sure the numbers ever grazed 60. But you know, we are talking these days now, and I'm looking at the organogram in the media department alone, and I'm wondering, so what is everybody here doing? So many advisors, so many senior special assistants, things have been, you know, bifurcated into print, electronic, online. You know, people are just hanging loose. I told you I was a, you know, media person in my state. I was director of press, and I had subordinates who were civil servants. But you didn't have this, you know, top deck evidence that we have today, which is also part of our problems as a democracy.
But if we were to ever embark on political reforms of any kind, who and how do you think we should go about it? Who would do it?
Well, I mean, we need to set up a very dispassionate national dialogue. Dispassionate in the sense that, you know, we bring people from all sides. I was not in the Jonathan conference, but I think it probably approximated our expectations. Part of the criticism of that conference was, oh, why set up a supra deck, you know, of reformers when you had the National Assembly, where every federal constituency is represented. But I'm sorry, you know, in some way, the way our politics and, you know, like the parliament is structured these days, you probably are not too sure, you know, unfortunately, if they will be on the side of the people or on the side of objectivity. You wonder now, my people, in Kogi West have been clamoring because of these issues. Oh, we've been here for 32 years. We cannot make governor. We were in Kwara. We didn't make governor. So there's been this, clamor for create us as a state. We have the numbers. But you now find a situation where the National Assembly has been in place for 24, 25 years now. But they've not been able to create a local government. They've not been able to add a state. So, these are some of the issues, some of the things that people may feel may not happen the way our parliament or governance structure is run. Unfortunately, people actually give credit to past military dispensations because these creations were by fiat. Akwa Ibom is created with immediate effect. Kogi is created with immediate effect. Nabacha comes, I'm giving you one state per geopolitical zone. So we now become 36 states. We are not able to get this in this milieu because, entrenched interests are so broad-based and intertwined. But somehow we have to face this dragon, this monster of political reform and get it right.
Mm. Don't wonder whether state creation really is our problem, because at the end of the day, nobody is really talking about how to harness more resources and how to make, what we're interested in is how we can get more officials, which then again, and comes back to the same problem of, a growing political class without commensurate growth in the economy, etc. But I want to take you back to your initial submission on your assessment and observations on the elections which happened. It would seem that you have a bone to pick with the people of your state, because you are saying that you're putting this squarely on the people. What should the people have? You think at this the process, if it wasn't followed, was on the people, not on the institutions of state meant to conduct the process? They
also had their blame. You found people scrambling for cheap Ankara, 4 years of 800,000, 1,000.
So the votes were bought?
Absolutely. And that meant so much to them. And of course, they were ingratiated maybe with the next 5,000, next 10,000. And these are people that are always, badgered those of us who are in the capital here, or that it's all bad at home and all that. So you want to be able to say, if you feel this bad, why did you not represent it, with your thumb when you went to the polling unit? And, why did you allow the recycling of the old order? So, it goes to them, partially. Of course, like we've also said, the electoral system, as presently is flawed. It is ineffective. It is not going to drive democracy. Indeed, we are stunted, and by every election, the electoral pattern is worsening.
How widespread was that vote buying?
I think it was fairly global, in my state. Pictures are already flying during the election of, such transactions. Unfortunately, 2 people got shot trying to haul ballot boxes away, so it was there. People who were administering these things were encamped, maybe in a house, not too far from a polling unit, and people were mobilized there to go do their bidding, or vice versa. People were asked to go, since you still had your telephone, take a shot of it and convince me that this is what you've done. It was there.
Wow. Okay, well, it looks like it was down low, below the list of things that was reported. We heard more reports around pre-field election results.
Very true. And unfortunately, this was a tradition that was started in our own catchment.
Where is that, Kogi West?
Kogi Central.
Central, okay.
More glaringly in 2019, where you found that, like I mentioned before, the votes of one local government area equated the votes of 4 local governments elsewhere. I think Dino Melaye, the PDP candidate, was trying to say something about this when he spoke with Shion Okibaloi, 2 days ago. And, he brought this accredited and number voted. And you found exponential margins of sometimes over 300, 400% between the original and the fabricated. We cannot go on like this. This is not democracy.
Do you expect a review of sorts from INEC? Do you expect, even though, yes, winners have already been announced, do you expect that, because if we have this kind of glaring things, and this was also reflected on the IREV, which interestingly worked in these elections. People could follow, monitor what was happening, and there were certain disparities that were noted in terms of accreditation and also the number of votes cast at the end of the day. So I don't know whether you expect a review, because some people are actually banking on that. They say, INEC, you still have a power of review within 7 days.
Yeah, INEC needs to reinvent itself. And unfortunately, there's mass disaffection with the leadership of INEC as presently constituted. There were complaints in February. There are complaints now. So what I don't know is whether, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu is in a position to lead an internal reorganization. I don't know the timeline of his being in office, and I don't know whether this has to come when we have a new leadership there. But when you have a system where resident electoral commissioners, for instance, are chosen by governors and recommended, you are not going to have, the kind of dispassionateness, objectivity that you're supposed to have. I mean, hypothetically, if I were an APC member and, I went to oversee the election in Bayelsa, I may be inclined to gravitate towards, my party. But I think we have millions out there of unattached Nigerians in the academia, in the professions, who are actually really, really dispassionate and who can do this job for us. We really, really need to reinvent.
What do you think about the statements that were put out by INEC about Kogi? Because those areas that they said, well, we noticed that there were infractions here, but they put up another one too, saying, now here's what we've decided about those ones. But even at that, still call the results.
Yeah, it's the same thing that, I was talking about. Don't forget too that the present milieu has also engendered this practice of win however, win the way you will, and let's go to court. Which also, brings another leg to the quantum distrust of people, in the system across sectors. You say people should go to court, and you have to now wonder whether a candidate who has burnt himself out during the elections will have the capacity to prosecute this to the end. If he does to the end, unfortunately, there have been instances where even the judiciary, has been blamed for complicity. So you see, it's a whole, intermingled, intertwined scenario which we really have to find a way of getting around.
Because that IREV, yes, it was functional, but then we still saw that while they were announcing results, some of the results that were not fully uploaded on IREV were still being announced. And then, it comes across to a lot of people that, well, IREV can work for all it cares, but doesn't really matter. So we don't even have to post anything there. But announce the results. After all, they've said, look, there's no law that says if I put it on IREV or if I don't put it on IREV, it invalidates whatever has been announced.
The new template in elections now is Jabba. Collect it.
Wow.
And then let's go and talk about it in the court. I was reading something somewhere. Murtala Jaka, the candidate of the SDP, I hear says he's not even going to court. He said he focused on his own part of the state and forgot to build structures elsewhere. So that is a plus to whoever it is, try to, do people in during the election. These are the kind of dysfunctionalities I talked about in our body politic.
Yeah. But he also said something that raised a lot of concern for several people who were listening to him while he was speaking to us here. He said, look, we trusted INEC. We relied on what they told us. We took their words to the bank. But we got there and saw something entirely different. And then he said, but you know what? For the next elections, we will be ready. So that suggests several things. That, look, it's either, if he tells the supporters, look, go and be ready, they could interpret it in any way.
Absolutely.
And decide that this one, it will be free for all, no matter what happens.
If you ask me, with all due respect, the way INEC is today, it should be uncoupled. It should be dismantled, you know. And let's find other people to do this job, or, you know, tell the people there to get serious. But, you know, seriously, Nigerians have lost faith in this. I think, you know, the electoral process under the sitting INEC superstructure has dragged us lowest in the 25 years of our democracy now. We cannot continue like this.
Because even if they go ahead and amend the Electoral Act and say, okay, you must upload this result on IREP to validate the results, we've seen what they can do when everybody thought it was law. So they can go back to do what they did before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then which will now make nonsense of that you might have put in place. So what exactly do they want?
That is what I told you, you know, that's what I was telling you earlier, that, you know, politics has become big business, multi-segmented, you know, and it has downstreams to all kinds of sectors. You know, I mean, of course, people are building houses from the proceeds and all that. So, you know, for me, INEC as it is today, everybody there should be sent home. Those of them who claim to be university professors, let them go and teach there. People should go back to their businesses and let's do something new. It's a shame for us when we live here, for instance, and Nigerians are leading ECOWAS observer missions to Liberia, to Sierra Leone, and, you know, things like this bad at home. You know,
But,
we should be ashamed.
You know, we also saw recently the appointment of resident electoral commissioners. We saw people who are attached to APC and the PDP. So you then thought, okay, if ruling party is doing it, opposition should speak out. Now opposition too is in the whole game, and you think, look, what exactly is all of this? So where do people then turn to?
Absolutely, that's what I told you about the dismemberment. Party people are not doing the Nigerians. And the university system is not the only place where you can source credible people.
Every tower is supposed to be a fantastic place for great minds.
Absolutely, but, you know, we have retired jurists too, of, you know, some pedigree. We have people who have, you know, worked in the private sector with, you know, I mean, what's it called now? With the kind of profiles, curriculum vitae you really, really appreciate. So, I mean, why are we going around all these people who are, with all due respects, basically jobbers in many instances? You know, I'm sorry, I come back one again. We have to just, you know, jettison our INEC and put something new.
We've spoken a lot about the IRF, but the beavers. The beavers are supposed to be the first hurdle, and that is also recognized in the Electoral Act. In many places, civil society and even the media reported that the beavers wasn't used. The beavers was bypassed. And ideally, no one is supposed to be able to vote without, you know, going through a beavers accreditation. So there are many questions as to why it is we're bothered to introduce technology.
And spend so much money.
If we're not going to use it.
Absolutely, you know. I was reading the headline somewhere, maybe it was in This Day this morning, and Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor, you know, came down very hard on former President Muhammadu Buhari, and, you know, talked about how reckless the administration was, and, you know, just how much they plunged Nigeria into debt. And of course, with all due respect, the things that we are going through today, you know, are also offshoots of the system he put together. You know, he wasn't obliged, with all due respect, to return Mahmoud Yaqub after his first term. You know, except, of course, if there were predetermined ends he wanted that structure to serve. You know, it's really, really unfortunate, because these are the same people, you know, who sought National Assembly approval of hundreds of billions for scrap that we are not using. It's totally discouraging.
All right, let's Ayo and Buki, I've got questions for you as well.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Olusule, I heard you earlier when you were talking about the ethnic coloration to the election in Kogi, and you revealed that you're also from that state as well. I'd like us to explore that a little further by giving us further insight. Are you saying that, you know, the way the people of Kogi voted along tribal lines trumped what the candidates, you know, are complaining to be electoral malpractices? So which, you know, was responsible more for the outcome, the ethnic coloration or the malpractices that we saw?
My name is Olusule. Olusule.
Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, both ways. Yeah, both ways. I mean, the general feeling was, like I told you before, 3 senatorial zones with 3 dominant ethnicities, you know, 3 ways. So you found a situation where there was bluff voting for candidates who came from central by central, from east by east. In a manner of speaking too, the people of Kogi West senatorial zone, where I come from, didn't help themselves. There were 3 candidates on the field, all from Kogi West, which has 7 local government areas. So you found them, you know, talking at each other there, trying to tear the numbers apart. So, you know, basically these were some of the, you know, things that were responsible for this situation. Before the election, elders and groups and associations from Kogi West senatorial zone, from Okunland, you know, the more preponderant socio-cultural group there, you know, tried to speak with the various candidates to come together as one house, as a family. Unfortunately, all 3 went into the race, which was going to impact on the numbers that they turned out.
What do we make of the PDP candidate, Senator Melaye's theory that the APC worked against him, and if he had been given a chance, he would have made inroads in votes into Kogi East and Central as well?
Well, he had a good campaign. He moved around. He toured the 21 local government areas, 9 in Kogi West, 5 in Kogi Central, 7 in Kogi West. Sorry, 9 in Kogi East. He toured around. I mean, he visited dignitaries, had very good rallies. His running mate, a lady, is from Kogi East, and you know, some of these were expected to have added up, you know, to his pot. But unfortunately, like I said, in quotes, the home support was not in one basket, was not mono-concentrated, you know, to impact on the eventual outcome of the election.
And more importantly, we've been talking a lot about political reforms on the program today. But how far can we go with political reforms if it's this same political elite, political class, you know, that has been produced by a flawed process that will champion the political reforms?
There have to be political reforms, and there also has to be attitudinal reforms, you know, by the people of Nigeria. When President Obasanjo came in 1999, he started a campaign for national rebirth, which here was the acronym. And the idea was, you know, to help us, you know, rethink our orientation, you know, change our worldview in many ways. He set up an organization which was supposed to oversee that. But midway through their work, through one of the programs that they initiated, which they call the Accountability Program, you found that there were disaffected politicians who thought that, you know, the Obasanjo government was turning the people against their elected officers. And, you know, the dream died. But at the end of the day, you know, like we said, we're talking about electoral reforms, but this also has to be driven by the people. You know, you cannot stay, I mean, on the fence. You cannot be outside the perimeter, you know, barricade and want to impact on the system. The people have to help themselves. They have to be knowledgeable themselves. they have to be confident, they have to be brave, and they have to be able to push the system and get it to work.
Dr. Olusule, I'm excited with the last part of what you just said now concerning the people. I am concerned and interested in that conversation, particularly because that is the foundation of our democracy. And without the people, there is no democracy. But it would seem like they are not just the foundation, they're actually at the lower rung of the ladder as well. So let's explore your your media experience dating back perhaps into the 90s, possibly even the 80s, and see how political communication has helped us up until now, if at all. Because in most cases, the people don't really, I'm not sure the people really get the meat of the matter to really understand their candidates enough. So how well would you say, in terms of political communication, from the politician to the people particularly, how well have we done over time? Have we progressed or retrogressed? Have we allowed the vicissitudes to determine what the people will get, or the politicians are just having their way?
The people have been, unfortunately, dehumanized by the way the system is running now. Fayose, the former governor of Ekiti State, couched the stomach infrastructure concept many years ago. People, unfortunately, many of our people down there, want to see what you are giving them now. They are not interested in rhetoric, in airy statements. They are interested in what am I getting. I made the point, a while ago about the fact that, what I saw in my place, 4 yards low quality Ankara, which sells for 800 or 1,000 in the market, was one of the things that was used to bait our people. And some people were asking them, now how long will this serve you between now and the next election in 2027? So the people themselves have sadly reclined into mass, inertia, incapable, of thinking right, in many instances, which is why we have the problems that we have on ground now. Yes, political communication. Whenever we go home, we engage with our people. They come in numbers, but again, you find that the group that visits you, say as an overlord of the SDP, you entertain them, and you give them some support. 50–60% of those are also going to feature next door when they are visiting the APM candidate. So, it is unfortunately the kind of down politics that we practice now, which has really impacted on our people. You made the point that they are on a real low. Yes, they are on a real low.
Yeah.
Because they are even incapable of rising, to challenge the established order and to ask that what is right.
Unfortunately, Dr. Olusule, some of them, seeing what goes on and seeing that maybe I better get into the kitchen as opposed to waiting to be served in the dining room, they get into the political parties themselves. So how well would you say we have done in terms of even political communication within the political parties themselves? Because there are those who say that's one of the things that worked against the PDP candidate in Kogi State.
We've not done well. We've not done well. I mean, there has been retrogression. When you put the scenario in 2023, beside what you had in 1999 and thereafter. Except on one occasion, I have voted in all the elections that have taken place in this country, at least since the MKO Abiola Kingibe election. So, I've always been with my people there, much as, we all live out here. And, I mean, I can tell you, therefore, that if I was going to track our electoral history from the 1993 elections, I can see, a free nosedive, an unhindered slide down the slope, which is very unfortunate. Because, I mean, politics is supposed to be engineered by them, it's supposed to be powered by them, and people have become so hungry that, whatever crumbs fall from the table is just as good for them. When somebody sizes you up and thinks that 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira buys your vote and keeps him in office for another 4 years to continue to trample on you, is really, really unfortunate. So much has to be done.
Just one quick thing before we go. Do you think that the issue you raised about the Central and the East not pulling together to support the West will be a feature in the next elections?
So much work has to be done in the next election. Sometimes I'm worried. I don't know whether just the 4 years that we have between now and then will actually, manage the schisms that are between these groups. But again, these are things that are supposed to be, assessed and agreed upon on the table with a gentlemanly agreement. Elsewhere, you find states where even minority ethnic groups have been supported to lead. The kind of, ethnographic tripod you have in Kogi is there in Delta State. And, among the 3 senatorial zones, every zone has produced a governor. Same for Cross River State, same for Enugu State and all that. So why is ours different in Kogi? These are issues we need to interrogate.
All right, Dr. Tunde Olusule, media practitioner, former presidential advisor, thank you for your time here today.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Let's quickly take a look at some messages before we go. We've got this one coming through from Olusule. He says, from the off-cycle elections, it seems INEC ad hoc staff lack electoral trust, and the solution is to replace name and signature with officer's name or BVN so that erring staff could easily be identified and face trial.
Interesting. Well, Professor Enakina says, when will Nigerian politicians play by the rules of the game? When will they allow electioneering processes to work without devising ways of subversion? INEC must devise a foolproof mechanism to minimize these incidences during and after elections, since the burden of proof is near impossible because of legal constraints once a candidate has been declared winner. INEC should ensure that elections are won in polling stations, not through the barrel of manipulation and intimidation.
Well, this one is from Dixon Aker, and he chooses to talk about something entirely different. He says, surprisingly, the fuel queues have resurfaced in Abuja. This is against the belief that subsidy is evil, and once it's removed, all the challenges in the oil sector shall be over. How can someone queue for 2 hours to buy about 5 liters of fuel that cannot take one to town and go back? Subsidy removal has bastardized Nigeria's economy. This is the worst state of any economy. If governance is about the welfare of the citizens and not just to generate revenue for the ruling class, then the federal government must wake up and review the price of fuel. Many people, particularly in the transport industry, have lost their jobs. Well, not very far from the truth there.
Well, that, of course, I recognize your mail. Magnus Okoro, thank you so much for sending it. That's our show today. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Aya Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka.
We'll wait to hear from the NNPC as to what precisely is happening in that sector, and they cannot say they haven't noticed the queues. Thank you for watching and for your feedback. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Chamberlain Asaf. Goodbye.
Thank you.